Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of EducAsian presented by the Asian Community Development Council. Today, we are going to talk College Readiness Bootcamp. This is a great program that ACDC has put on for quite a few years now. And this year is actually going to be happening in the springtime for the first time. And we're going to be talking to a person who's organizing that this year, Erica Mosca, who's the founder and executive director of Leaders in Training. Erica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. Very excited.
And Erica, for people who are not familiar, tell us about first Leaders in Training and your involvement and what College Readiness Bootcamp is all about.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. As you said, my name is Erica Mosca, founder and executive director of Leaders in Training. We support students to be the very first in their family to graduate from college, but more importantly, come back to the community. So we're based out on Lamb Washington in East Las Vegas. And I'm really excited that for the third year in a row, we are partnering with the Asian Community Development Council on the amazing College Readiness Bootcamp. So think about it as a way that if you're not part of a program like Leaders in Training, or if your parent is looking for more information on the very complicated college process, this is what CRB is. We usually have, over hundreds of students at a UNLV ballroom. We bring in speakers, we bring in information and resources to make sure students and parents in the fall know what they need to do that school year to make sure they can be on a college track. Of course, with COVID and everything going on, this past year, we continued to have the CRB. We had over 200 attendants via Zoom. And in some ways, it was awesome because we were able to bring everybody together. We had a lot more speakers from out of state who could speak about their colleges and their requirements. And we really listened to our students and families on their surveys and the feedback. And they said, we love CRB, but we would love in the springtime if there was another program that could help us actually matriculate. There are so many steps once you get into college to actually make sure you enroll and go and prevent this thing in the education world called summer melt. And so this year, we're really excited. We'll have our first ever spring College Readiness Bootcamp open to any 11th graders, 12th graders, or parents who want to learn more on, if you're in the 11th grade, what do you do during the summer to make sure you're productive and ready to go? And if you're in the 12th grade, what do you need to do now to actually sign up and go to college, pay for everything, get enrolled in your courses, and be good to go in the fall?
And you mentioned that this year is quite different. Obviously, we're going to do it virtual. And I know you don't have a date set yet for the spring one, but it's upcoming. It's virtual. And I can imagine, Erica, this is going to be kind of a challenging year for so many students, right? Given they've been maybe for 11th and 12th graders, especially with it being pandemic, remote learning, not being in class, not seeing their counselors in person or their teacher in person. What are you hearing from the students right now? And what can this program help to kind of alleviate that and get them on the college track?
Yes, it's so hard what our students and families are facing right now. They have all the potential, they have all the motivation to want to go, but sometimes it's just these little things are disconnected. Like you said, maybe you don't see your counselor face to face. Maybe you don't have as much support services because you're not physically on a campus. And that's really actually why we wanted to bring this spring College Readiness Bootcamp together, because we talked to a lot of the college matriculation advisors as well. Those college admissions counselors, they want to talk to students when they get in. They want to walk them through the process to make sure they're not missing any paperwork, that they do enroll, that they go to orientation, they get all their mandatory testing done. And so because our students may not see their counselor as much or may not have so much support on this, we wanted to have the boot camp as just another way where students and families can directly connect to these individuals at these colleges or through these scholarships so they do know what to do next.
And I know that usually, and you've been part of this with ACDC for quite a few years now, and usually it's only in September. What's the big advantages of having it early now in the spring before college starts, right?
Yeah, and we kind of think of it as the two-tiered approach. So we'll still have our one in September. The main difference is in September, it's open to 8th grade through 12th grade. So again, we saw this as more of a general, what do you need to do to make sure you're knowing about college, you know your options, you're staying on track, and to be motivated. We have very diverse speakers who would talk about their experiences and really just be encouraging to students to be on a college path. For this one, we're really saying, gosh, you can't just give access to information. It's helpful, but for people who want it, you really need to go to the next step. How do we actually ensure that you will enroll, you will pay your deposits, that you will take those tests? Because, since I've been in college many years ago, it continues to change and there are more requirements. And even as someone like me who has studied these things has to look it up and go through different websites, I can't imagine what it's like for someone, especially if you're the first in your family. We want to make sure the process is easy, streamlined, and accessible so that anyone can pursue that path in a way that works for them.
And I know, with ACDC, the mission is to reach out to all kinds of communities, especially those with language barriers or cultural barriers or whatever challenges they are, to get them the resources they need. What kind of your experiences in terms of dealing with the challenges? I mean, maybe some of the families, like you said, have never gone to college before, so they don't have that experience, right? And I'm sure language comes into play for some of these families and kids as well.
Yes, that's a great question. Why I do this work is I'm really proud to be the first person in my family to graduate from college. I have two parents that love me. My dad is an immigrant from the Philippines, and he worked really hard. My mom worked really hard, and they did everything possible to make sure that I had opportunities, but they didn't know what to do on that FAFSA. They didn't know what to do on that CSSS profile. And so these are things that are not really families' faults. They care so much, but it really is expert content knowledge. And so this is a way that we think we're always really excited about. We do invite parents to the CRB, which is unique to some other programs that may be out there. And we get a good number of parents that come and they get their questions answered. And why we're really excited at LIT that we're partnering with ACDC is because it's really about the next layer of service. You can give lots of people information like we do in September. You can then have more of a tiered approach in May where you're actually helping specific groups for specific things. And now we're really excited that after this one, we'll even allow students and families to sign up for a more of a ongoing year-long cohort-based service model. So that's what Leaders in Training already does, but in East Las Vegas. And so we're excited that next year we'll be able to have a space at the ACDC office, and any family, regardless of language barriers or any issues, if they want that year-long free support, they'll be able to sign up after the boot camp this year.
Yeah, that's great, because, we're just thinking people come to these workshops and how do they keep on that relationship? Because sometimes, families run into issues where they can't send their kids to college right away. They want to come back and get resources and be able to talk to people, how do I get back on that track, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the whole thing about this is I think in the nonprofit industry, we've also seen as well, it's great to have big programs with big numbers and, give that access. But again, if we're not following up, if we're not seeing what are the long-term visions and changes we're seeing in communities, sometimes you can't then measure it, right? And so at Leaders in Training, our vision, like I said, is first gen, college graduation, but come back to the community. We actually track that. So we support students 4 years in high school, 4 years post-secondary, whether they choose a traditional college, trade school, military. We'll have a few that choose that route, but we support them because they made that choice. And then we have an alumni program where we actually measure, okay, you got all this free support. What are you doing to give back to your community today and make it better? And so having this long-term range view, we're really excited that we could bring that to ACDC and help all of the students and families that they work with, because ACDC does so many services for families and the community. We wanted to make sure that we were integrating an education component that could really be long-term.
I think that's great. And what have you found? You've been part of this for several years now. Are you seeing trends that are changing in students who are entering college, or the reasons they're doing it? What are some challenges, things that are changing on that end that you've seen in the last few years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think really, so I think if I start with our institutional level, there have
Mhm.
definitely been some things in the industry that have changed in a good way. We see much more support for undocumented and
Mhm.
documented students. We see more support for foster youth that's come
Mhm.
from the state. We also have seen the treasurer's office been more involved with its scholarships. And so from a really high level, you see on the ground, there's definitely some support services to try to enroll more
Mhm.
students. And then I think where we can always work on, I was actually just in a meeting with some UNR folks, and this is what we were discussing is how do you ensure that students stay? You know, what are the things that an institution needs to do to make sure students feel comfortable, especially if you're a first generation student?
Mhm.
Colleges are not always inclusive places if you know it's just not a typical thing. And so it's really ensuring that if you are a first generation student or if you are come from a marginalized background, how you can feel comfortable, not only comfortable, but feel like you can be a leader on that campus. And I think that's
Mhm.
where trends are really starting to move to and think about so that even colleges and universities can be a place of inclusivity and making sure that everyone feels like they have a place there.
And I think what's great about these college readiness boot camp is you get to hear directly from the students or students who are going to be students, college students and their families, because those from the college side, they need to hear what the challenges are, right? And you give kind of that two-way conversation, not just giving the students information, but you get to hear from them directly as well. And I think that's been helpful.
Oh, yes, totally agree.
Mhm.
And we've been able to facilitate some long-term conversations or feedback loops from that because just like
Mhm.
you said, we got to hear from the end user and see
Mhm.
what issues and questions do they have so that we can prevent those in the future.
All right. So lay it out for us. I mean, people who are joining our conversation right now and listening in here on our platform, we're talking to Erica Mosca, and she's the founder and executive director of Leaders in Training, and are now helping ACDC to launch this and organize the College Readiness Bootcamp, which usually takes part only in September, but we're doing a spring one this year for 11th and 12th graders to get them ready to go to college, especially after a year that's been so challenging for so many students. So kind of lay it out there. People are interested, if families are interested, what's going to be happening with this boot camp come in the probably in the next few weeks, right?
Yes. So our target is May. We'll get those out as soon as possible, but would love for people to just think about if you're a student and you're in the 11th or 12th grade, I'm going to talk to you about what some of the content will look like, and then I'll talk to parents. But I think it's really important, no matter what your goals are, in the 11th grade, you still have a lot of options. It's really knowing about how to use those summer months to the most productive places possible. Are you looking for those volunteers and those internship experiences? And if you go to the boot camp, we're going to give you resources and connections to people who are looking for those volunteers or those interns, because we know you can say it, but if we don't connect you or support you to actually find those, it can be difficult. The second thing is really that personal statement. I'm sure you've talked about that at school or you've heard that before, but if you can have a solid personal statement done by the end of the summer, your college applications will be a breeze the following year. Also, have you asked your teachers for letters of recommendation? You know, so these are the things as an 11th grader we may not always think about, but you can really save yourself some time and heartache and stress on the front end if we're thinking about it in the summer. So we want you to come in May, learn about what you can do, and then if you want more help, sign up for one of the long-term cohorts afterwards. For our 12th graders, it is just so important. We're not missing deadlines. We're turning in our work. Again, placement tests, official transcripts, official ACT scores. Did you go to orientation? Did you pay for your housing deposit if you're leaving? If you're staying local, did you pay for your tuition deposit? These are very specific questions that it's sometimes hard to get those answers to, and it's so different from school to school, but it's not going to be from us you're going to get this information. We're actually going to invite the institutions, the actual schools to be there. So you could go to a session with someone from UNR or UNLV, for example, where they would tell you, hey, these are the steps you need to do. And then you can connect with them afterwards if you still have questions. And then finally, for parents, for those upperclassmen, those 11th and 12th graders, it's really important and hard sometimes to understand what is the EFC on the FAFSA? What is the SAR? What are all these terms, especially when it comes to payment plans, federal loans, private loans, grants? We want to be able to talk that through with you and really even show examples of, this is a student financial aid report. This is what each of these terms mean. This is what it means to go to orientation, and really just allow parents as well. One of the sessions will be with the institutions again. So if parents just want a connection with the actual people of the institution, we will be facilitating that as well.
Yeah, so lots coming up, and we wanted to emphasize this for students and families that is there a cost to this? Can they just sign up? Like, what's kind of the process that they need to know before this happens?
That is a great question. So the College Readiness Bootcamp is completely free. It's just a program that we want to put onto the community because we know that there's so much need right now. You can go to any type of school possible. You would just sign up on the Eventbrite link. We're just finishing some last minute logistics, and then that link will be up. And it's really, because the beauty of Zoom, we can take as many people as want to attend. And so when you see that Eventbrite, you'll be able to say which sessions you're interested in, and we will, stay updated with you.
Yeah, and this is for students all across Nevada, right? They don't have to just be in Las Vegas. I mean, we're inviting all students to who are interested to take part.
That's a great point. Yes, especially because we will have the Northern Nevada School there. This is for all students. And even if you're in the 12th grade and you may not have a college track or you're not sure, we will have people there who can talk about what are some of the potential next steps you can do. So I also hope people see that it's not just for those who've been accepted to many places or have a plan. It's really a time for you to sit back, reflect, and figure out what your next steps are and be connected to some resources and people who can help you with that.
So how are you envisioning the event here in the springtime? Is it going to be a few hours on Zoom, speakers, interactive, events and projects? What are you thinking right now?
Yeah, it's going to be on the Zoom, and it will typically be, which I'm excited about, it will be completely differentiated. So 11th graders will have different sessions than 12th graders that are different than parents, right? So sometimes students want to make sure the parent isn't in the same session. We utilize the breakout groups. We have prizes when we come back full group. We will have the raffle. So it's going to be interactive. It's going to be as fun as it can be on Zoom. But I would say that we had some great attendance with our one in September, and we're just excited to have another one, and we're going to make it as interactive as possible and really just make sure people leave with, one, their questions answered, or two, connected to the next resource, the next people they need to ask to further get those questions answered.
And you've been in this world for a while now in terms of higher education. You're obviously very passionate about it. What advice do you have for students right now who are struggling a little bit? They want to think about the future and be positive, but with everything that's been happening, it's been tough for a lot of kids.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a great question. I think when we work with our students, because we see this through our own post-secondary students, the two things that I think are really important is, if you can be, and you are, right, because they're still in school, if you're resilient right now, this is truly the hardest it's going to be. And I'm sure you'd agree with me, right? We could never guess that this was going to happen. But if you're able to just keep a calendar, keep a schedule, keep your tasks, imagine that you did that during a global pandemic, you are set for the rest of your life. So that's really one thing, is just inspiring students to know they are doing the thing. They should be so proud of themselves, and they will be able to do it. And second, something that I think is so important for all young people, there really is no linear path, right? Just because you thought that this is one way it was going to go doesn't mean it has to go that way. If you asked me 12 years ago that this is what I would be doing, I would be pretty shocked. I'd tell you no, but I'm very happy with my choices and what I'm doing. And so I think the more students know, one, this is probably the worst it's going to be. And if you can survive now, you're going to be good. And two, there is no one typical path you need to go down. I think it really inspires them, but also helps them see that they are on the path that matters to them, and that's all that matters.
All right. And we're going to put up more information, for where people can go to sign up. You said an Eventbrite link is coming for students and their families to sign up for this. And I'm excited to hear that you're expanding your role with Leaders in Training with ACDC and to keep this accountability, relationships going with students here across Nevada. So that's really exciting to hear. So thank you again, Erica, for your time today and for sharing some more information about College Readiness Bootcamp, which is coming up very soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it and looking forward to watching the rest of these.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. And thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of EducAsian. And we'll see you again next week.